My first visit in Cape Town with the Cape Town Symphony Orchestra was in 1994, so 27 years ago. And this orchestra here was actually responsible that I changed my profession from orchestra player to conductor. Before this, I did always, for a long time, I did both. I played in the orchestra, but I also conducted. Then I was invited here, and short time after this, they offered me the position of principal conductor here. And then I thought, that's the chance to change the profession. And so I came here. So Cape Town is actually responsible that I'm today a conductor. And I must say I'm very, very grateful. And the orchestra, of course, with the political circumstances, went through difficult situations, but they always survived and did a wonderful job. And I think this orchestra could be very, very proud about the development they make from then to today. And it's also a very versatile orchestra. They do all kinds of things, ballet and opera and symphonic and also pop music. They do everything on a very high level. There is a big difference between a concert for live audience and for streaming or for microphones only. An audience always adds something to the atmosphere. You can feel that an audience gets into it, comes with you, or in a bad case, you feel that they are actually not interested. So the audience has a big part of the concert event, and even I would even say an influence on the performance. I mentioned already the problems which we have because of this virus situation. The difference to a normal setup with the orchestra, for example. So first of all, the orchestra, all the members of the orchestra sit further apart from each other. We have every single woodwind player sitting in a plastic box, actually. We have the brass players sitting on the where usually the choir is standing, or part of the audience. So they are far away from the orchestra, from the rest of the orchestra, from the strings, for example. And that is really not good for ensemble, because you have to be closer together. Especially you are used to this for decades, to play with close contact. Now it's a big difference, and I have also a plastic protection or a plastic wall around me. So the sound from the woodwinds, for example, has to overcome their plastic wall. Then the sound comes to me, it has to overcome my plastic wall. And very often what I hear is too late. So I have to tell them, you are too late, or at least I hear it too late, so we have to play a bit earlier, which is of course horrible for their ears. So there are big challenges for playing a piece, especially a difficult piece like Tchaikovsky's Second or Brahms Symphony, under these circumstances. Also that the brass is now sitting much higher. Not only that they sit further away, they are sitting much higher, which exposes them even more. So there is also a dynamic problem. They have to play much softer than usual. I can show you how it looks actually. The orchestra, now the strings, we are here in the section of the first violin. The players sit that far apart that each one has a stand. Usually 2 players have 1 stand. Then when we get to my podium here, you see I have this plastic cage around me to protect them from me, and I'm protected from them. That is, I get plexiglass over it. Then, of course, that this distance between between strings is all the same in the whole string orchestra. Then we come to the woodwinds. There you can see that each player, each woodwind player sits in a plastic box actually. They have it in front of them and also between them, which makes it very difficult to play together. Then that's the brass there, the trombones, 2-bar trombones, trumpets, there the horns. They sit where usually the choir is standing or the audience is sitting. They are now far away from me, for example, or from the rest of the orchestra. They are very high, which makes them very exposed. Also, it's difficult for them to be not too loud. And these are the double basses, which usually stand there. Now they are there where usually the trombones and the 2-bar sits, so just that they are far away from everybody. And that makes it really a big challenge to keep this together. And but that's all we can do at the moment. It's a battle, but I think the results are very good. But we can't wait until it will be possible to do it the natural way. And the acoustic problem is, for example, here with the woodwinds, they play against this wall. The sound has to come over this thing. Then the sound goes here to my wall, which I have in front of me. So what they play comes to my ears actually too late. So they have very often to play a bit ahead of what they hear, which makes it even more difficult. But that's how it is, and we can't change anything at the moment. The start of my conducting career started actually in the orchestra, in the radio orchestra in Stuttgart. And at the same time, when I started in the orchestra as a cellist, Sergio Celibidache started as music director of this orchestra. And so I had actually the best conducting lesson you can imagine, to sit in the orchestra, to see and to hear how from the first rehearsal it develops to the concert. That's the most fascinating thing, which you are not that close when you are a student sitting in the audience. If you are in the orchestra, that's the best place. So I was lucky, I had this. And what was very special, there are many very special things, but one very special thing with him was that he didn't make recordings, from 2 reasons. One reason was that he said a concert is always a singular event. Each time you play a piece, it quasi develops at the moment. When you make a recording, it is as if you make a photo from whatever. It stays always the same. Whenever you look at this photo, it looks the same. So if you have a recording, it's always the same. It doesn't depend on audience, on the hall, on it's always. And he thought that's inhuman, and he didn't do this. The other reason was, he said, I have such a special pianissimo, which the technicians, the guys who make the recording, they ruin this, because if the sound is too low, too soft, they bring it up artificially. So they interfere in my interpretation, and that was, of course, for him absolutely unthinkable. The challenge to conduct pieces from a big difference, from different cultures, different backgrounds, like, for example, in a very extreme case is Brahms and Tchaikovsky. Brahms is more introvert, Tchaikovsky is absolutely extrovert. Brahms is more intellectual, Tchaikovsky is more emotional. And that is, and if both poles actually do this with such a mastery, and they are such geniuses, then it's really a great pleasure to do both of these. And you have to change, you have to approach these pieces differently. I'm absolutely convinced that orchestras will survive, will even prosper. I know that there is there was made this prediction that in the future there will only be some few orchestras, and they will probably produce everything on CDs or whatever, and more we don't need. What they really forget is the special thing with music is the live experience, because every concert is a creative process. And that's what people want to experience. If you listen to a recording, it's not a creative process, or maybe only one time. But then when you watch the same thing, you always have this in the same way. The concert is always a singular creative process. In a way, we create, to a certain degree, we create a piece by playing it. This piece exists only on paper, 5 lines, some dots, some dynamic marks, and that's it. But that doesn't sound. So you have to have people who do this, and it is every time a new creative process, completely different to painting, for example. A painting is done, finished, you can hang it maybe at different places, you can have different light, but it's done. Music always is reborn in a concert. And that makes music so unbelievably special and unique. I talked about how great how impressed I am, how the orchestra survived many difficult times and how they fight now the Corona times. But what we also have to think of is the support from the audience, the support from donors, which is absolutely vital. Without this, we couldn't do all of this. That is so important. And I think I speak in the name of the whole orchestra, that we are very, very grateful for all kinds of donations. You make it possible that we can do this.